Okay, at this point we're going to build our controller, so let's get started. So first we need to define it by ng controller magic word for Angular, and mine I'm going to be called t controller as controller, and this bit as controller basically means controller CTRL is going to be represented everywhere in the index and routes templates, but object itself is going to be called CTRL. I'm going to show you in a second what I meant by this. This is the way of defining object with different name convention. It's going to be really clear in a second. So this has been defined, and let's go back to our routes for a second. So our model has been defined here, but we need to make that global. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy that over to our index page and define one more script and just simply paste that in. And this dependency at the moment, this GUI router has to be available everywhere, and we're going to actually push more dependency later on. So we don't need this variable any longer. Let's make this as a global and just make a new link for controller, which we're going to build in a second. And that's the link, right? And in router, we don't need that as well. We don't need this dependency just because we already defined it in the index. So that should serve the purpose of declaring our routes. Let's copy that over and actually need to create our controller file. So controller.js, that's spell. Yeah, that looks good. Right here, paste that in. Lovely. So in this case, it's not a config, but it's controller. So, and we call it, the object is called TCRL, defining index page right here. Right, and it's gonna take dependency of scope and also dependency of state, which is part of the UI router dependency injection. So state is responsible for changing our routes on a control level. Alright, this has been defined. So I'm gonna make some changes in our create user template. So let's say user already have an account. So I want to give it options like by any means is already on this page. I want to give it options to actually go to login. So let's define paragraph asking the question already a user question mark and define a link to login page. Right. So the way to do it in Angular, we need to define ng.click. And I mentioned before, everything in a route, in a routes template and index is representing by the CTR name. So we're gonna use that in our create user template. So let's place that in and define method called change state. It's not any default method, it's just the name I picked. And just follow along. If you want to use different name, remember to actually define that later. And in this one, it's going to go to login routes, and to display it on the page, I'm going to simply use login in arrows. Perfect. That should serve the purpose of putting it and going to different link. The same I'm gonna do for login. Similar way, I'm asking a questions. For example, don't have an account. If you don't have an account, I'm gonna direct you to create an account. So create is the one I'm rather representing for creating it, and itself the link is gonna be called create a user. Right, save that. We defined our login, we defined our create user controller, and in this point we need to define this method in the controller itself. So to represent TCRL controller, we're going to use the keyword this, and the method, which is going to be function, it's taking one argument. We're going to call it tab, and inside we're going to call dependency called state go to tab. Right, that's already been defined. In routes, everything is there. In here as well. Alright, let's test our application. Refresh the page. And then when we click on a create user, we should go to the create user page. And fair enough, we do. And vice versa, when we click on the login, we should go to login page. Perfect, it works. Next lesson, we're going to take to the next level and imply ng animate. So stay tuned and thank you very much.